All right. Hey, it is another podcast day here in the study, I guess you could say. I don't know. My sort of man cave kind of place. It's not really a man cave. It's definitely way more of a study. And I wish I could say that it smelled of rich mahogany. It really doesn't. And most of the time, it is smelling of teenage boy. Which is like super, super nasty. So anyway, it's with it being podcast day, firing up the live feed here. It'll be put on my YouTube channel. So if you want to rewatch the video, you can do that. In a few minutes here, I'm gonna load up, start recording the podcast itself, and you'll be able to connect with the podcast anywhere that you subscribe to podcasts, and or you can go to anchor.fm/Daniel M. Rose, or you can go, it'll be posted on my website at danielemrose.com, and so we're going to talk about vocation, calling, some things I've been thinking about over the last week or so about this. And so if anyone is hanging around after I'm done recording, then we'll do some Q&A. If you're watching this on YouTube afterwards, or maybe even if you're watching this on Facebook after the recording session's all done and the videos posted and all that kind of stuff, know that on Thursdays, somewhere between 11 and 1, I go live, and I'm going live these days on Facebook Live because everybody's on Facebook. So that's kind of where we're at, and so I'm gonna get rolling here, get my handy dandy set of scriptures here open to where I want to be, and then we're going to record this thing, and hopefully we'll have a little Q&A afterwards, but we'll just wait and see. So today's podcast is on vacation and calling, so I'm going to go ahead and get this thing rolling. So let's do this. Welcome to this week's edition of Be Awesome and Don't Suck. I'm Dan Rose. Glad you're here with me this week, and we are going to be talking about vocation and calling, something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last week and a half, 10 days or so, probably even more so in the last 48 hours, and so I just wanted to drop a few thoughts about that here on Be Awesome, Don't Suck. It is another football week, and the last week wasn't a whole lot of fun. I mean, it was fun in the sense that the local team destroyed a team, but less fun than normal because Ethan was hurt, not playing. So that wasn't very much fun. But it looks like he's healthy, ready to go, and ready to do his thing this Friday night. So Friday Night Lights will be fun again. Will be more fun, I guess we would say, this week. It's been one of those crazy busy weeks. A friend of mine asked if Ethan was starting, and I said, "Dude, I think so, but I don't think I've seen Ethan in 2 days. I feel like we've just been, everyone in our family's kind of been running in different directions, and that seems to be the way things go here at the end of September, beginning of October, as the reality of the world, of school and sports and life really begins to kick in. So, yeah, I don't know about your family, but my family has been experiencing fall chaos over the last couple weeks. But that's not why you're listening to this podcast. You're listening to this podcast, hopefully, I don't know, maybe to get some insight on some things that I've got to say about this particular topic, which is vocation and calling. I spent about 10 years on staff with an organization called Campus Crusade for Christ. Now it's known as Cru. And this question of what do I do with my life? What am I supposed to do when I leave college? What is my calling? What is my vocation? Where am I supposed to go after I get done with this 4 years? It is a question that haunts college students. I think probably the entire 4 years that they're in college. And I think even more so today as I look at high school seniors who are graduating, who are leaving high school, and they're already being bombarded with the questions of, what's your major? What are you going to do? What's your future look like? I mean, these 17, 18-year-olds are supposed to have their whole future mapped out before they leave high school. And I think about, when I graduated high school, I didn't really have a clue what I wanted to do with my life. And I definitely could not have given you an answer to what my major necessarily was going to be, or what did I want to do when I graduated from college. I didn't really know. I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew that I wanted to go have an adventure, but really other than that, I didn't have a whole lot of other answers. Now, by the time I ended college, I had a pretty clear sense of what it was that I was going to do with my life, but it wasn't without trial and error. It wasn't without really wrestling and asking a lot of questions. But even then, as I graduated from college and went on staff with Cru, there were still many seasons, and there were still a number of times where I didn't know if I was doing the thing that I was supposed to be doing. Right? I was consistently wrestling with this question of what is my vocation? What is my calling? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And that question nagged me and nagged me and nagged me. Probably 4 or 5 years into my time with Cru, I began to sense a desire to go to seminary. I began to sense this desire to become more engaged in the leadership of the local church. And so I knew that my time with Cru was ending. But in that transitionary period, I wrestled, I discussed, I argued, I wrestled with all kinds of things. And I remember as I was talking about going to seminary, talking about making this big transition and really wrestling with it, my boss at the time, a guy named Matt, he looked at me in the eye. I still remember where we were at. We were walking just along the outer edge of Illinois State University, and I was going back and forth and using probably way more words than Matt was interested in hearing. And he said, "Bro, what are you afraid of?" And I sat there and looked at him. There was about a million things that I think at the time I was afraid of, but none of them were even legitimate fears. I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew what the trajectory of my life was looking like, and it was to go to grad school, and then it was to go into being a pastor and that kind of thing. But to do that was going to require change. It was going to require me to make some hard decisions, to leave relationships, to leave a place I loved. And so for me to really enter into the vocation and calling that I was experiencing was going to hurt. It was going to cost something. And it's interesting, over the years, as I have had conversations with people about their vocation, not about their job, their vocation. And I think that's an important distinction. I think you can have a job while you pursue your vocation. I remember a good friend who was constantly in between jobs. His career path was taking him in some really weird places and some really weird directions. And he would get these jobs that he thought were going to be his career, and they just always kind of fell through. He had one job for a long, long time, but he always had this desire to be a writer. He wanted to create. He wanted to write. And he would write these beautiful things, these beautiful blog posts. And at Christmas, he would create these ornaments for trees and write these beautiful reflections on them. The guy was ridiculously gifted. And it was so obvious that his vocation was writer. And me and my friend, the Todd, we would always encourage him, dude, you got to write, you got to write, you got to write. Why don't you pursue being a writer? You can write. Oh, I need a job. But my career. Here's the thing. Job and vocation, not the same thing. Oftentimes a job allows you to pursue your vocation. A job can be the financial backing that allows you or provides the means by which you're able to do this thing that you are meant to do. And I think a great example of that is my cousin, who's a fantastic singer and songwriter, and he's a police officer. That's his job. His vocation is singer-songwriter. When he is on stage, when he is performing, when he is singing, there is something just beyond beautiful and amazing and mystical and magical about the whole thing that happens because this guy is right in the center of his vocation. I don't know if that's necessarily the case when he's working his day job. So I think it's important as we think about vocation or vocation and calling that we distinguish between a job and a vocation. And so as these conversations take place, as I wrestled with my vocation, as I have wrestled with my calling, as I've walked through this with a number of people, I start and end and keep coming back to a couple of questions. The first question I always ask my friends that I'm walking through this with is, what is it that only you can do? What thing in this life it is designed only for you, that nobody else can do, that nobody else can step into and take this thing over? Because we got to start there. We got to kind of figure that piece out, because that really provides the scaffolding for your whole story, for your whole pursuit of calling and vocation is figuring out what is it that you are uniquely able to do. And I think about my friends that are married or that have families, and that's kind of the easiest place, right? The reality is that nobody can step into my shoes as the father to my children. They can't. Nobody can do that. I am uniquely suited to be Ethan and Libby's dad, and for whatever reason, I am uniquely suited to be Amy's husband. And so that's kind of that top layer that provides a structure for me as I think about my vocation. That is the one thing that only I can do. And so that really has to drive my thinking, my process about all of this, about all these questions about calling, vocation. Is that one thing that only I can do, and everything else flows from that. So once I'm able to figure that out, once we've kind of determined what might be this overarching story that we can hang our hooks on, that we can use as a starting point, then we can begin to wrestle with some of these other things. Other questions that I'll ask are, what is it that gets me excited? What do I find easy to talk about? What do I dream about? What problems do I see in this world? What are the things that I think that I have a solution for in this world. And some of those things can begin to give me hints and ideas towards what a vocation or calling might look like. And then the other kind of, I don't know, 100,000 foot idea is from Ephesians 2, verse 10. Paul's writing and he says, for we are what he has made us, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand to be our way of life. And what I love about that is that there is a sense here that there is some purpose, some bigger purpose for us, for me, for you, as we wrestle through vocation and calling. It's a good thing to wrestle with because there are answers. There is something out there for you to pursue, for me to pursue. And as we pursue that thing, as we really go hard at that, as we go and try to figure that thing out, we're able to experience a clear sense of purpose and meaning, and I'd say fulfillment. And this past week, I gathered with a handful of high school athletes, and the question on the table before them was, what does it mean? What does it mean to have purpose? What does it mean to live your life on purpose? And how do you find that purpose? How do you go about doing those things? And they kind of, they're teenagers. They're still trying to figure all that out, which is where they're supposed to be. And I asked them this question, though. I said, what do you think your life would be like if you weren't living out your purpose? If you weren't living out what it is that God created for you to do? What do you think your life would be like? They said, it would be boring. It wouldn't be any fun. It would be lame. They talked about it being stressful. I think all those things are really, really great questions to wrestle with. If I think I'm in my vocation, but it's boring, it's stressful, it's not any fun, I'm not enjoying any of it, then are you really in the midst of your vocation? It might be a job that you have, and it might be a job that you're supposed to do, but is it your vocation? Is it your calling? Is it this deeper sense of what it is that you are here to do? And I think that can go a long way to helping us. Not that everything's going to be easy. Pursuing our vocation, pursuing your calling is going to be hard. Nothing's ever promised about easy. But is there a sense of joy? And I think the bigger picture is are you experiencing flourishing? Would you say that where you're at in what you think is your vocation, what you think is your calling, are you experiencing a sense of flourishing where you are feeling most like yourself, I guess is a way to say it? Is it that you're able to say, this is who I am? And as you say, this is who I am, that it's not that it's not a sense of an identity failure, right? So my job is as a pastor. That's my job. That's what I do. It's not who I am. Who I am is, I think who I am is an ambassador, for Jesus, for his way of life, for the way he lived, and I want to help other people live that way. That's my vocation. That's who I am. It goes to this deeper thing, and as I live that out, I experience a flourishing of my life. I experience a deep sense of the good, of the real. I experience a deep sense of passion. I experience a peace that transcends all understanding. Now, that's not always the case when I'm doing pastor things, right? Like, my job as pastor demands me to do pastor things, like weddings or funerals or, I don't know, go to meetings, lots of meetings. My gosh, more and more meetings. Serve on committees, do all these other things. That's my job. I have a responsibility to do those things. But I don't know if I necessarily flourish in the midst of those things. But when I'm in a hospital room with somebody, when I'm in a pub sitting with somebody and we're talking about things that matter, when I'm sitting in the coffee shop, having deep, meaningful conversations about spiritual truths and spiritual realities, when I am functioning and living as an ambassador for Jesus, that's when I experience flourishing. And that's when I know that I'm in the midst of my vocation. So that doesn't have to always be like a spiritually kind of thing. I mean, that's me. That's where I'm at. I look at my dad. I don't know if my dad will watch this. I don't know if my dad will listen to this podcast. But my dad, he found his vocation. He knew his calling, and it was to sell cars. There was watching him sell cars was an almost mystical experience. This guy it was, I can't even explain it, but it was an art. There was nothing. My dad didn't do shady stuff. My dad wasn't, one of those car salesmen that you make jokes about. He had integrity, and he always dealt with his customers with integrity. But as he engaged with people, there was just something about it. There was a joy that was in him when he was living this out. And I had the joy, I had the pleasure to work alongside my dad one summer before I got married, and seeing him do his thing was absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. I watch some friends of mine. My mom is another example. She taught in the inner city. She taught in a place that was ridiculously hard. There was nothing easy. There was tears after tears after tears. There was frustration beyond frustration. There was anger beyond anger at what was happening in her school district, what was happening in her classroom, what was happening in her building. And yet, there was such joy, and even now that she's retired, to listen to her talk about her students, to talk about the process of teaching and educating and helping children learn truths, learn reality, learn how to read, to learn the joy of reading, or to do math, to be able to make sense of the world around them. She lights up, and you can tell that was her vocation. It wasn't easy. It was hard. But she flourished as an educator. She flourished as a teacher. She was in her vocation. And so I think as we kind of process, as you wrestle through, what is my calling? What is my vocation? What is this big thing that I'm supposed to be about? What is it that I'm supposed to do with my life? Ask some of those questions. Where have you experienced flourishing? Where have you experienced a sense of peace, a sense of joy in what it is that you're doing? That's going to help you get down the road towards calling and vocation. And then the last bit is community. I have found that I need to invite people in. I need to have friends of mine who I trust come alongside of me that I can bounce things off of, and I can say, hey, does this make sense? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Do you see this in me? I remember when we were getting ready to, when we were thinking about and praying about launching the Antioch movement here in Ypsilanti, this deep need to really invite and ask people to join us in processing through this, because I knew it was what I wanted to do. I wanted to do it. I wanted to move to Ypsilanti. I wanted to start the Antioch movement and do all these things that we're doing and live church a different way. I wanted to do that, but I needed other people to come in and alongside of me to let me know, did they sense the same thing? Because if the people closest to me who know me the best are like, bro, no, bad idea. This is not going to work. This is not a good thing. This is not at all who you are. Then I would have needed to take a beat. I would have needed to stop for a minute. But you know what? That's not what I heard. I kept hearing those voices closest to me saying, yes, this is a good thing. We can see how this is in your wheelhouse. We think you will flourish here. And it has been. It has been an amazing journey. Now I stand here. Well, I'm not standing, I'm sitting. But nonetheless, as I'm here in Ypsilanti 5 years later, I'm in the midst of my vocation. I am in the midst of my calling. And I'm flourishing in a way that I've never flourished before as a human being. And so I guess what I want to say to you is, if you want help, if you want somebody to walk through this with you, if you want to try to process this, come talk to me, reach out to me. Let's process this together. Let's talk about vocation and calling, and what does it look like to practice human flourishing? You know, come do this. Let me know. Hit me up, and we'll have coffee, we'll have a bourbon, we'll have a beer, whatever it takes. But we'll wrestle through this together, and that would be a joy to me, and hopefully it would be encouraging to you. So anyway, to wrap it up, just a reminder, Ephesians 2:10, for we are what he has made us, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand to be our way of life. Man, there is something for you to do. There is a purpose for you. God's got this idea for you to walk into, for you to live out, for it to be your way of life. How cool is that? It's just a matter of figuring out and finding it. And the journey of that, in and of itself, is a whole heck of a lot of fun. So anyway, that's our conversation today. That's be awesome, don't suck. And remember, live today in a way that's awesome, and be awesome, don't suck. Thanks for listening. All right, well, it doesn't look like anybody's on anymore, so no Q&A this week. But if you watched this video, if you thought any of this was helpful, I'm serious. I would love for you to reach out to me if you want help walking through and figuring out your calling, your vocation. What does that look like? I would love to help you in that. I would love to coach you through that process. And so just direct message me. Hit me up on Twitter at Daniel M. Rose, and we'll have that conversation. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be back next week for another episode of Be Awesome, Don't Suck.